Was born in the darkest of ignorance, my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Offer my respectful obeisances and beyond. So, greetings. Hare Krishna. We have a reading today from Bhagavad Gita. What's the number? Turn my phone.
26.
9:15.
Oh.
That was
okay.
My Bhagavatam.
Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
9:15.
9:15. Jnana.
Jnana.
Yajnena.
Yajnena.
That's a yajnena. What yajnena?
Yajnena.
Chapi.
Chapi.
Anye.
Anye.
Jnana yajna. Jnana yajnena chapi anye. Yajanto. Mam. Upasate. Yajanto mam upasate. Ekatvena. Pritatvena. Etatvena. I don't know if I said it right. Bahuda. Vishvato. Mukham. Bahuda Vishvato Mukham. Jnana Yajnena Chapyanye. Yajjanto mamupasate.
Yajanto mamupasate.
Ekatvena pritatvena.
Ekatvena pritatvena.
Bahuda vishvatomukham.
Bahuda vishvatomukham.
Jnana yagyena chapyanye.
Jnana yagyena chapyanye.
Yajjanto mamupasate.
Yajanto mamupasate.
Ekatvena pritatvena.
Ekatvena pritatvena.
Bahuda vishvatomukham.
Bahuda vishvatomukham.
One more time. Jnana yagyena chapyanye.
Jnana yagyena chapyanye.
Yajjanto mamupasate.
Yajanto mamupasate.
Ekatvena pritatvena.
Ekatvena pritatvena.
Bahudha vishvatomukham.
Bahuda vishvatomukham.
Okay, please chant.
Jnana yagyena chapyanye. Yajanto mamupasate. Ekatvena pritatvena. Bahuda vishvatomukham.
Jnana yagnena chapanye.
Jnana yagyena chapyanye.
Yajanto mamupasate.
Yajanto mamupasate.
Ekatvena pritatvena.
Ekatvena pritatvena.
Bahuddha vishvatomukham.
Bahuda vishvatomukham. Jnana yagyena chapyanye. Yajanto mamupasate. Ekatvena pritatvena. Bahuda vishvatomukham.
Anybody else? Okay, word meanings. Jnana yagyena,
Jnana yagyena.
by cultivation of knowledge.
By cultivation of knowledge.
Cha,
Cha.
also.
Also.
Api,
Api.
certainly.
Certainly.
Anye,
Anye.
others.
Others.
Yajjantaha,
Yajantaha.
sacrificing.
Sacrificing.
Mam,
Mam.
me.
Me.
Upasate,
Upasate.
worship.
Worship.
Ekatvena,
Ekatvena.
in oneness.
In oneness.
Pritatvena,
Pritatvena.
in duality.
In duality.
Mahudha,
Bahuda.
in diversity.
In diversity.
Vishvataha, mukham,
Vishvataha.
and in the universal form.
And in the universal form.
So, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many, and in the universal form. Please repeat. Others
Others
who engage in sacrifice
Who engage in sacrifice
by the cultivation of knowledge
by the cultivation of knowledge.
worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second,
worship the Supreme Lord as one without a second,
as diverse in many,
as diverse in many,
and in the universal form.
and in the universal form.
So, purport by Prabhupada.
Jai.
This verse is the summary of the previous verses. The Lord tells Arjuna that those who are purely in Krishna consciousness and do not know anything other than Krishna are called Mahatma. Yet there are other persons who are not exactly in the position of Mahatma, but who worship Krishna also in different ways. Some of them have already been described as the distressed, the financially destitute, the inquisitive, and those who are engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. But there are others who are still lower, and these are divided into three. 1. He who worships himself as one with the Supreme Lord. 2. He who concocts some form of the Supreme Lord and worships that. And 3. He who accepts the universal form, the Vishvarupa of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and worships that. Out of the above three, the lowest, those who worship themselves as the Supreme Lord, thinking themselves to be monists, are most predominant. Such people think themselves to be the Supreme Lord, and in this mentality they worship themselves. This is also a type of God worship, for they can understand that they are not the material body, but are actually spirit soul. At least, such a sense is prominent. Generally, the impersonalists worship the Supreme Lord in this way. The second class includes the worshippers of the demigods, those who by imagination consider any form to be the form of the Supreme Lord. And the third class includes those who cannot conceive of anything beyond the manifestation of this material universe. They consider the universe to be the supreme organism or entity and worship that. The universe is also a form of the Lord. So, this one can, usually this is where I say, Om Gyanati Marnasya, I already said it, but Om Gyanati Marnasya, Gyananjana Shakara Chakshu Unmitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Just for funny if I don't say it after I read. So, I ended up with this verse. To tell a little story. Yogendra Prabhu contacted me this morning and asked me if I would give the class today. And I was in the act of finishing an orientation and writing it. And so I thought, why don't I do that? So what do I mean by an orientation? So what I'm doing is I'm writing a series of orientations that are to be like a standard foundational class, one-shot class on different subjects to newcomers, to establish newcomers with the correct foundation. Because in the city temples where I'm accustomed to, we all kind of, not all of us, but many of us older folks, we joined in city temples and everybody was so crammed together you couldn't help but start learning things. But here, we're not crammed together. We're so spread out that somebody may miss some points and nobody knows that they did. So, because we're not talking enough, for a long time maybe, we don't. So anyways, I noticed the need. And so I decided to write these orientations. The first orientation, this is orientation 3. The first orientation is it's for guests who's just come and their only commitment is that they walk into the temple and so they're going to observe. So it describes what's going on in the temple program. The deities, the kirtan, Prabhupada, the class, the philosophy, like that, and then the prasadam. So that orientation explains that philosophically and thoroughly. So that, and I'm offering that already on Sunday, but nobody remembers to come at 11:30, so we've got to figure out a better way. So anyways, the second orientation is for those who are going to stay here, and that's the history and government of ISKCON and of New Talavana, so that they get oriented. And that's okay, simple. So this is orientation 3. This is the Hare Krishna philosophy. That's a really big topic, but the point here is that many people come with different philosophies. In fact, everybody who comes to Krishna consciousness comes from other ideas, right? We all come from, unless you're born in a pure devotee family, you're coming from some different philosophies, and that may still be within. And so to be able to identify and distinguish is really important. So that's what this one is for. And so, I started out, I think my way of doing this is to read it, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So I'm going to kind of try and do that and see how it feels. So the first part is a brief section, the soul. What are the different ideas about the soul, and what is the Hare Krishna teaching? Some say the soul does not exist. Life begins and ends with the body. Consciousness arises from the body. Some say God created the soul when he created the body, and the soul became eternal from that point on. Does anybody recognize these? The Christians teach this. And the first one, of course, they're not in any religion. And the second one is the teaching of the Christians. The third one, the Hare Krishna teaching is that the soul is eternal both in the past and in the future. The soul which always exists is not the body, but is temporarily located in the body. And here's a verse to show, Bhagavad Gita 2:12. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future will any of us cease to be. In the purport, Prabhupada quotes a verse which sums it up perfectly. And this is the first time I really, really looked at that verse. So I write this. So it goes, Nityo Nityananam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Bahunam, Yovidadati Kamam. So Nityo Nityananam means one eternal and many eternals. Chaitanas Chaitananam means one conscious being and many conscious beings. Eko Bahunam, again, it says one and many. Getting that point across really good here in this verse. And then Yo Vidadhate Kaman, the one is he who supplies the necessities for the many. So that sums up our position. And there is a popular variation of this philosophy which is not actually bona fide. It is not supported by the Vedic scriptures such as the Bhagavad Gita. This variation says that yes, there is God and there are souls, but they began merged as one and will merge again as one. Individuality is illusion. Those who believe this are called what? Yeah, Mayavadis. I don't know if they call themselves that, but that's how Prabhupada referred to them. Because Maya means illusion. So it's totally, all individuality is illusion. The Hare Krishna spiritual masters do not teach or accept this philosophy. The Hare Krishna teaching is that the tiny individual souls and the unlimited Supreme Soul, all are individuals truly and eternally. There's no merging ever. So to summarize so far, we are many tiny eternal individual spirit souls, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the one unlimited eternally individual spirit soul. So that was just the first part, kind of short. And this is types of worshipers. So it gets kind of interesting. To me anyway, I think this is very interesting. Since God is great and individual souls are tiny and dependent, the natural relationship between souls and God is one of worship. So there are many philosophies in the world about this worship. But of course, naturally, it's really service. We serve Him. But from this world, this is the natural thing with which we should worship God. And many philosophies in the world about this worship, but following Lord Krishna's explanations in the Bhagavad Gita, we can discuss them in three basic groups. So one is the voidist or non-worshippers. 2, impersonalists or incomplete worshippers. Incomplete is my word, but I'll explain why. And 3, personalists who worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're also called Vaishnavas, those who worship Vishnu, another name for Krishna. Okay, first, the voidists. These do not worship God at all. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, 26, Lord Krishna describes the voidist. If, however, you think that the soul or symptoms of life is always born and dies forever, ... In this purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that this means those who do not believe in the separate existence of the soul, but that the symptoms of life arise from the combination of chemicals in the body. By that, always born, at first I read it to mean forever reincarnating, always getting born. But no, Prabhupada doesn't say that it means that. But each time there's a soul, it's because he's born then, always born. And then he dies forever. That's it. The body is made, there's a soul in it, the soul, or maybe it doesn't exist. Anyways, it dies forever. And only consciousness comes from chemicals in the body. That's one way of looking at things. Some people feel that way. Scientists teach that. In Bhagavad Gita 7:15, Krishna says, those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So in this verse, he just listed 4 types of non-worshippers, or miscreants, who do not begin to do devotional service to the Lord. So I'll just list those 4 again. 1, some are gross materialists who work hard foolishly just for sense gratification. This is summarized from Prabhupada's purport explaining them. Gross materialists, they work hard foolishly just for sense gratification. They don't even think beyond that. 2, some are low class and just don't care for any religious principles or rules. So they don't have any qualities in their character. They're just low class. 3, some, mostly intellectuals, are distracted or deluded by so many different kinds of material knowledge or speculative philosophies. Picture a university professor. So many interesting philosophies, so many interesting things of science and theories and everything, and you just get wrapped up in that. And we can't know. We just have this idea and this idea and this idea, and they get all interested in that, and they don't ever begin to worship Krishna because they don't ever settle on the truth. So 4, some are deliberate atheists against God. So then, going on that one, the demonic mentality of deliberate atheists is described in Bhagavad Gita chapter 16, 8 through 21, and I'll just say the first one it starts with. They say that this world is unreal, with no foundation, no God in control. They say it is produced of sex desire and has no cause other than lust. So these types might believe in some form of morality, maybe for the sake of their own people, whoever that may be, or they may be just self-serving and greedy. So there are atheists who seem to be nice because they want nice things for their own people, but they have no idea of God and they're not going to worship God. In fact, they might campaign against worshiping God. But, they seem to be nice people. Or they might just be not very nice people. They might be real self-serving and greedy and vicious and all kind of bad things. So those are the voidists. Okay, now it gets more subtle. The further you go, the more interesting it gets, to me anyways. Impersonalists. So how many different kinds of impersonalists? These worship God, but indirectly and not with complete understanding. In Bhagavad Gita 9:15, this one we just did, isn't it? That's what we're doing today. So, others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many, and as the universal form. Three types of impersonalists are described and explained in the purport. So, 1. Those who believe that all is one. So I'm going to repeat the purport a little bit here, but those who believe that all is one, the one without a second. In a way, sometimes we use that expression, one without a second, means there's only one God who's without a second. But this means totally one without a second. There's only one God and nobody else. They do believe in spirit, but as they think all spirit is one without individuality, they in effect worship themselves as God. You don't have to worship anybody else if you think all is one, right? These are the Mayavadis. Mayavadis are almost like atheists, because if all is one, and I am one with God, and I am thus God, then there's no need to worship a God higher than myself. So that's practically like an atheist attitude. At least you admit there's spirit, but you don't have to worship anybody because, well, it's me. I'm one with God. So, 2, those who worship God as diverse and many. A tricky, interesting phrase here. They concoct an idea of God and worship that. What does that mean? So most commonly this means they worship demigods. Demigods do exist according to Scripture, but they are created beings with delegated responsibilities and only give temporary material benefits. So you can worship them. You can also worship a rich man. Maybe he'll give you some money or something. But this is not going to solve your spiritual problem. These worshippers have concocted the idea that these demigods share among themselves the role of God, diverse in many. So in India, this may mean worship of Shiva or Goddess Durga or Ganesh or Indra or some other demigod or demigods. In the West, it may mean paganism or magic, in which there is worship, but for material gain. It may even mean worship of saints for this or that need. You see how we can have a pure religion, but because of lack of complete understanding or because of material attachments, things get mixed into it. That's why we need to understand these things real clear, so that we can identify when we're mixing and we can start to purify. So anyway, in Bhagavad Gita 7:23, Krishna says, men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Somebody's really having a bad time. Better count them in. 3, those who worship God as the universal form. This refers to nature worship. The universal form means the universe as a form of God. In a sense, this idea is true, in that God is within the universe, personally within every heart and every atom, sort of like an individual soul is within a body. But here, the universe itself is worshipped as God, rather than understanding that God is personal and is within it. An example of this is the idea of Gaia. Anybody hear of Gaia? It's a popular kind of concept nowadays. Gaia, Mother Earth. That the earth is a living being that regulates itself to sustain the life that lives on it. Those people who don't have any other beliefs, they believe in Gaia. They believe in what they see. They believe in Gaia. So all 3 of the above types of impersonalist worshippers have partial understanding of who God is, and thus I use the word incomplete to describe their worship. Yes, God is, in a sense, everything, because He is the source of everything, but He is also above everything. So to worship oneself as Him, or to worship part of His creation, such as the demigods, as Him, or to worship all of His creation, such as nature, as Him, misses the point of who He is. These worshippers are thus mistaken. We are meant to have a personal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of all creation, and the above understandings are not personal because they are not about the Supreme Person. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, Krishna gives Arjuna a grand and overwhelming vision of his universal form. Interestingly, at first Arjuna sees all parts of the material universe, which is an impressive vision in itself. So you ever notice that in chapter 11? At first Krishna just sees all parts of the universe. And Arjuna just sees all parts of the universe. Krishna says, you can see anything you wish to see right here. But then Krishna says, but you can't see me. So I gave you divine eyes. Remember that? There's a little change there. And then all of a sudden, Arjuna sees more. So, then Krishna gives him divine eyes. Now Arjuna sees everywhere the unlimited personal form of Vishnu as he pervades the entire universe. If someone meditates on the universal form as the form of Vishnu, Krishna in his formal and majestic feature as the creator, it is called in the Srimad Bhagavatam the first step in God realization. There's a chapter called that, and it describes the universal form. It's all the things you see are parts of the form of Vishnu. It's described that way. The first step in God realization. But if it is just focused on nature as God, it is impersonal. But the following type of impersonalist is not mistaken about who God is. He is just not at the highest level of God realization. Then I'm going to refer to the one in chapter 12 of the Gita to clue you in. So there's 3 levels of God realization, and they are as follows. 1, Brahman, the impersonal or all-pervasive aspect of God. 2, Paramatma, the localized personal aspect who is within every heart and every atom. 3, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of Brahman and Paramatma. This impersonalist, now being discussed, is worshipping Brahman. He is described in Bhagavad Gita 12, 3-5, and Krishna says, instead of reading this, I'll just summarize it. Krishna says this form of worship is very difficult because it involves trying to understand something one cannot describe, and it takes a long time to make progress. But eventually this worshipper can come to the level of worshipping Bhagavan Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna says in chapter 12. We have looked at 4 types of impersonalists: the Mayavadis, the demigod worshippers, the nature worshippers, and the worshippers of impersonal Brahman. So, are we going too long? Not too long. Okay. Personalists or Vaishnavas. Following are examples in Bhagavad Gita verses that demonstrate the personal understanding. 1. First of all, note that every time Krishna begins speaking in the Gita, the verse begins with Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, which is always translated as the Supreme Personality of Godhead said. The name Bhagavan means he who possesses all of the opulences: strength, wealth, knowledge, beauty, fame, and renunciation in unlimited measure. Possession of such opulences is a trait of persons. Therefore, the use of the name Bhagavan is itself evidence of personalism. 2. In Bhagavad Gita 7:7, we see Krishna, quite obviously a person, sitting with Arjuna on the chariot, explaining to Arjuna, O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Here we see that the person Krishna supports everything, but in doing so he is as invisible as the thread inside the pearls, holding the pearls in their proper order. This aspect of Krishna is actually the Paramatma, or localized personal presence, as mentioned above. 3. In Bhagavad Gita 9:10, Krishna says, this material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So here we see that although he is within nature, he is also aloof above nature. We humans may observe nature's laws and think these laws are supreme, but here Krishna says he's directing those laws. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is above nature and nature's laws. Being aloof or above nature, not just within nature, means that Krishna himself is not only above his material energy, but is above his Paramatma aspect also. And 4. In Bhagavad Gita 14:27, Krishna says, and I am the basis of this impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of eternal happiness. So we see here that Krishna is the basis, the source of impersonal Brahman. Taking all this together, everything we said, it means that of the 3 levels of God realization mentioned above, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is above the other 2 and is therefore the highest understanding of God. You notice I'm doing a lot of repeating here because this is meant for orientation for new people who are not quite totally new, but are pretty new yet. And I'm repeating a lot to make sure everything stays real clear. So, here's interesting. At the end of Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, in which Krishna has shown Arjuna how he pervades this entire universe, essentially he has shown Arjuna both his impersonal Brahman in the form of time, right? and his more personal Paramatma feature, and in a very terrifying way. He at last shows Arjuna his very beautiful personal form as Bhagavan. He says in 1154, "My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding." Thus we see again that Krishna himself is the highest and also the dearest aspect of God. So a personalist or a Vaishnava worships Bhagavan Sri Krishna. A person who worships the Paramatma aspect of Krishna is also a personalist, although not yet with the highest understanding, and will eventually arrive at worship of Bhagavan. Some may wonder, where do other religions, particularly the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Mohammedanism, fit in? The answer is that they're considered personalists or Vaishnavas, but they have fewer details about God. Consequently, individual members may fill in gaps with more impersonalistic ideas, but mainly they are personalists. Unless we were born into a Vaishnava or personalism family, each of us comes from some kind or degree of voidist or impersonalist background. We may recognize ourselves here or there, meaning you may recognize yourself in this presentation. And we may still have some voidist or impersonalist tendencies we have not yet gotten rid of. It takes a long time to get purified. And just to finish reading this just a little bit more to finish up this orientation so you hear the whole thing. So, our spiritual path. Now we may ask, so what do we do about this knowledge? The answer was already given in 1154, devotional service to Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita 1865 and many other places as well, Lord Krishna instructs Arjuna and all of us what to do. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. The Hare Krishna movement gives guidance and opportunity to learn and practice this devotional service to Krishna. Okay, one more paragraph. The predicament of the spirit soul is that he is lost in the material world, suffering, yet so attached and so ignorant of his true nature that he must reincarnate into different bodies almost forever. Only by his encounter with devotees of Krishna can he begin the process of changing his consciousness by hearing about and practicing devotional service to Krishna under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Thus he gradually develops a higher taste, a taste for attachment to Krishna rather than for temporary material pleasures, and thus escapes the cycle of birth and death and goes back to Godhead. That is, he returns to Krishna's eternal, blissful spiritual abode. This is my attempt at an orientation to make sure people arrive with a foundation or land here with a foundation correct. Because we all come with voidism and or impersonalism mixed in. We all come with different ideas, different actions. So this is, and feedback would be good, or any questions or discussion? Yeah.
In Prabhupada's mantra, when we say...
Yes. Yeah, okay. Namaste Saraswati Deve, the servant of Saraswati, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Gauravani, Pracharane, preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya. Nirvishesha, Shunyavadi, the impersonalism and voidism. Nirvishesha is no form. Sunyavadi is zeroness, zero, voidism. Nirvishesha, Shunyavadi, Paschachadeshatari, preaching against these in the Western countries. So I also got my outline of this from Prabhupada's Prana Mantra, and from how Krishna presents in the Bhagavad Gita and how Prabhupada explains it. So certain basic, three groups, voidists, impersonalists, and personalists, certain basic types of each, and it's given. Yes, Katya?
I just wanted to say that I think maybe you should bring her a method of instruction, I forgot, maybe it's something else. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada was saying that some people, they still know about personal feature of God, so they know about his personality, but they're not attracted. So, like, even though Krishna is all attractive, sometimes they can't, like, for example, Mayavadis, they know that there is a universal form. They know about personal form of God also, but they're not attracted in the sense that they think that personal form is inferior to the material. So they think that, to the universal form, so they think that personal form is material. So like that is just, I mean, it's just a funny thing that it's not only about knowledge, it's also about some kind of realization which is granted by mercy of spiritual master.
And your desire, I suppose you don't really want to worship Krishna, you will like the Mayavadi philosophy very much. If you don't want to surrender. Do you have your hand up?
No, it's just instruction.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes?
That was an interesting statement you said. If you like, whether you know it or not, because I found this in talking to people about Krishna consciousness, whether they know it or not, they're in one of those categories or sometimes a mix.
Yeah.
And
It's
some
pretty...
people who are into Gaia, Mother Earth, are into, I saw a documentary called The New Age Hippies. And so this New Age hippie concept is real mushy, sometimes on purpose, so you don't have to commit. And it's real fun not to commit. It's just like whatever's on the plate today. It's like having a smorgasbord, and sometimes you might be committed, and it's the next week you may be uncommitted. And
If you do it like that, you'll be committed somewhere. You'll be committed. No, I'm just trying to make a joke.
I heard that. You
You'll
can
be
get
crazy.
committed.
But
They will come and pick you up in a little white van and white. Okay. They're coming to take you away.
you're coming to take you away, yeah. So yeah, it's so compactly and all-inclusively presented. The way Krishna presents it and the way Prabhupada has presented it, and even his Prana mantra is so everything fits into that. And if you can learn to analyze according to these categories, then even though we encounter endless varieties of each and endless varieties of mixing of each, and even we have a cow fest and people come and they tell us all their endless varieties of these things. And so we need to understand them, and if somebody comes to join us, we have to make sure that they have the correct understanding so that we don't find that we're harboring people who, they want to hang on to their Mayavadism or Gaia or something, So yeah.
Where are you reading that list of the different forms of impersonalism, Mayavada, and Wayism? Where are you reading that? The different...
This from the verse today, 9:15?
9:15.
Yeah.
That's Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah, Bhagavad Gita 9:15. It's, let's see, I can read it to you again. Others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge. So they're not just dummies, they're thinking, but they worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, that's the Mayavadis, and the purport tells this. And diverse in many, that's the demigods, and in the universal form, which is nature worship. And these, if you think about it long enough, it really covers all the possibilities. Yes, Prabhu?
Is this Gaia, is that the thing that's on the internet? Or is that something different?
I think they have some series or some presentation like that. Gaia is a word, it's in the dictionary actually now. It's a word meaning the organism of Earth. Like Earth is a living organism that regulates so that we can live on Earth. And Gaia is sick now.
Comment?
Yeah.
A lot of companies have been sort of ripping the name.
Yeah, it's getting popular.
Yeah, they have a yoga company, Yogendra, and they're called Gaia. And they have a symbol, which is the everlasting, some kind of flower, the flower of life, which is a geometrical circle inside a circle, and you overlap them and they make this beautiful design. And that company decided to call themselves Gaia. And they got a copyright and everything. But
it sort of means life on Earth as one organism, is basically what it means. Life on Earth is one organism.
I don't know if there's any spiritual
Gaia,
aspect to the company other than they want
Gaia means cow in Hindi, no?
Gaia.
Gaia
Gold.
means cow?
Gold. Gaia also think like this.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So.
Different words, but I don't know where the origin of it, but
I
somehow
just hear Bengali talking all the time and they go Gaia.
Which translation?
Comment.
On your topic of Gaia, how sick Gaia is now, I don't know if y'all saw this recently, but of the blue hole.
Oh, we saw something like
the
a
blue
hole.
hole, right?
The blue hole, yeah, the famous blue hole for years, Jacques
Oh, in the
Cousteau.
Caribbean, that deep.
Yeah, but they never reached the bottom until just recently. Jacques Cousteau even tried,
And they found trash, right?
Oh, so you heard about that?
Uh-huh.
What?
It was shocking what they found, and they kept leading up to it, and they wouldn't tell you what they found. But finally, when they went through a toxic layer of something, and they got through that, they were in a submersible. They got finally to the bottom of the blue hole, and finally you're going to get the information. What was the shocking thing that they found? Richard Branson's narrating this,
Plastic bags.
and what they found was plastic trash,
Oh.
all collected in the bottom of this big hole in the ocean. That makes sense,
Yeah.
They were collected,
Yeah.
And it was shocking, and he was recommitted to helping to, engage in these natural programs to help purify the earth.
Yeah.
What kind of hole is it? I don't know.
The blue hole, the famous blue hole.
I don't know.
It's a deep, water-filled hole.
Water?
It's somewhere in the Caribbean where there's some on the island, there's a big hole
Well, there's
down,
a
down,
few
down,
of them
down.
around the earth. There's a few around the
Yeah.
earth. A few of them. This is probably the most famous one. Jacques Cousteau actually went down years ago, but they never got to the bottom. I think it was only 400 feet.
Only 400 feet.
I think so. I think it's only 400 feet.
All
I
the
think it's only
plus
400 feet, right?
Mm.
400.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And the cenotes, am I saying it right? Down in Mexico, like those sinkholes.
Oh,
Also another kind of
Oh.
mystery,
Is that in the
a lot
ocean?
of mysteries. Gaia has many mysteries.
I thought that was shocking. Oh yeah, you see it.
But right in our lifetime, and when we were children, there was the wonders of the earth. We still believe there were tribes living traditionally. There was unexplored forests and everything, purity, and the tundra. I always want to go see the tundra. Just to look and see miles of moss or something, lichens, and now the tundra's melting and burning, and the forests are being cut down for cattle, raising cattle, and the tribes are all are corrupted and wearing Western clothes, whatever, So right in our lifetime, that whole concept changed. So now maybe that's why Gaia is so popular, because they're grabbing to it. But what comforts me is knowing that there never was supposed to be any hope in the beauty of Earth. It's all going to be destroyed and turned into the pradana, which is indescribable material energy that doesn't even have modes of nature yet.
Even if you think you have no anxiety, you still got anxiety in the material world. The Indians, they live like supposedly a pure type life. The land does not belong to me. All of this, none of it belongs to me. And yet, they're liable to kill anybody who comes and try to hunt on their quote property, which they don't own.
It's not so nice.
The material world's a quagmire.
It's not so nice. And just remember, the whole business is going to turn into pradana, which doesn't even have elements anymore. It's a pure material energy that doesn't even take up any space. Maybe it's like the original singularity. I don't know, because you can't describe it in any way. It's just all possible descriptions are now gone, and that's between creations. And it's all going to go back to that, and it's going to start over again, pure, and get contaminated and everything. So only the spiritual world stays pure. So that's what should not put our hopes on anything material.
I mean, Elon Musk, that rocket exploded recently on the pad right there. I mean, they were never going to launch that one anyway. But then another thing is his truck, it's supposed to be bulletproof, and they threw a ball at it and it busted the window. It says, well, don't throw it as fast hard. Threw another ball.
It's supposed to be bullet.
Busted the window again. So it's the material world, no matter how you try to improve it. I mean, you're always going to have anxiety.
That's an electric truck.
Yeah,
Electric
that's
truck.
his truck, yeah.
Instead of the one named after, not Marconi, but the other, Tesla. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, he knows about Marconi. Yeah, Tesla. So he made a truck.
So today's class was done differently than I usually do it, because I wrote a thing and I read it. And I usually don't do like that. So anyway, but I wanted to share it because I thought that's what I'm excited about today anyways. And I want everybody to know that I'm trying to do these orientations. And I want like moral support, interest, like that, so that I want New Talavana to become an educational center. So
Where are you having them now, Montague? This room down there.
well, we're trying in the devotee kitchen, farm office, whatever we call it,
Okay.
is but people we're trying to have it at 11:30, but nobody remembers to come early. So we're looking for a better idea.
I have a question. Here's just an idea. A nice reading point is this picnic table right up here when people first pull up, and have a little sign there.
But if they come at noon and find out that the orientation was 11:30.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yes.
So we're trying to figure out, Ronnie said she'll help round up people, and I need to take somebody like her because I would have no success trying, can you come to the meeting? No, I think, oh, okay, no. I would have no success rounding people up, but she'll say, go and learn more. So she said she would support it, so maybe it'll grow, we can have these after the feast. So I'm trying. Okay, so thank you all very much for listening.
Hare Krishna.
All goes to Srimad. By the way, Gita was to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.